Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. It is Thursday, April 14th, 2022, and I'm back on about a 3-day roll of getting the date right. I definitely remember today's date because when I established this date, I was excited to have 3 great young people in the room that are going to talk with us about, I'm going to call it waterfront equity and inclusiveness and a resilient waterfront. But I have some great folks in the room who I've had the pleasure to work with in other spaces. 2 have been on Java with Jimmy previously, and 1 I have worked with around supporting our rideshare drivers in making sure they keep their independence and flexibility. And we're going to talk today with members of the Coalition for a Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront. And we're really going to talk about the work that they've been doing, why they've come together, and, you know, equity. We've previously talked about Black spaces and talked about equity when it comes to moving within the city of Boston. And so without further ado, it is my pleasure and honor first to bring this wonderful queen into the room. She is stuck in here with us with Dr. Ian and AJ, but I am glad to have Maureen Azor, Dr. Ian Carby, who has been with us before, and this wonderful good friend and brother that's doing just so many things in Boston. I was with him in Cambridge last week at the 150th celebration of the Charter Institute. But good morning to all 3 of you. It just brings me joy to look at you all on my screen here. I probably need to take a screenshot because this is just really dope. You know, I know that you guys do. I know the spaces of equity and wellness that you guys move in. And so along with what we're going to talk about, which is very important, I'm just excited to have you all here individually and then as members of the coalition as well. And so why don't we start with introductions? Why don't we do an icebreaker? No, I'm joking. Maureen, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go to AJ and Dr. Carby, and we'll go into talking about this coalition, the waterfront itself. It's definitely for years been sort of what we would call some decisions that needed to be made around the waterfront, you know, may seem vexing to some or whatever, but it is definitely a space where there's been a lot of attention around development, equity, and just access. And so we're going to get into that in a few moments. But Maureen, this is your first time in the Java Cafe, and I'm loving your brick wall there. That is definitely, I'm looking at I maybe need to switch my background a little bit, but
this is my house actually.
Look, I can see it's not a green screen. It is definitely like authentic and it looks good.
You can see the imperfections, right? That's all I see.
I see the beauty in it. That's what I see. But good morning to you.
Good morning, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having us. I'm happy to be here. I'm usually behind the scenes, so this is cool.
I was happy when I saw that you were coming on, but please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Maureen Azor. I am a consultant with Conan Harris and Associates. Have been working with the coalition since around its inception last May, I believe. I am originally from Brockton, Mass, but I've been living in Boston for 14 years now. And I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. Brother AJ, you're no stranger to the Java Cafe. Introduce yourself again, though, and tell us just a little bit about yourself and your connection to the coalition.
Yeah. Well, good morning, Java fam. Good morning, Jimmy. Thank you for having us on to talk about This very important coalition. My name is Anthony Davis Jr. Go by AJ in some circles. I have been working with the coalition now for over 4 months, since last December. At the end of last year, came on board as a consultant with my firm, the Davis System, and have really just been working on building out some of the programming and serving as a programming advisor for the coalition as we build out some of the 2022 programs that we're looking to host on the waterfront.
And we're gonna, I've been teasing and letting folks know there's going to be a Java on the waterfront, and so it is real. These are the folks that are support and make sure that it happens. And we're going to come back to AJ in just a couple of seconds to really hear about the coalition, why it started, and its mission and goals. But Dr. Ian Carby, I don't know. I remember your session. And it is just good to have you back in this space of talking about wellness. So please reintroduce yourself and tell us about your connection, which I'm not surprised because, wellness, water, Dr. Carby. So tell us a little bit about yourself, sir, and then we're going to go back to AJ and really hear more about the coalition.
Yeah, it's great to be back here, James. Thanks for having us. So my name is Ian Carby. I'm a physical therapist right in the Boston area here. I came on around the same time as Anthony to work with the coalition as a health and wellness advisor. So here to help spread awareness of ways that people can stay healthy. I focus mostly on physical health, but I'm trying to spread awareness in all different types of wellness.
It's all the intersectionality, which I was told the other day, someone said that's not actually a word. So the intersection of so many things, wellness and water for me, definitely water is definitely a part of my wellness. I told somebody the other day, I was thinking about, moving to Atlanta, and it just hit me one day. I'm like, wait, I can't move to Atlanta because there's really no, you can't get to the water within a half an hour, 45 minutes. AJ's like, and so wellness being a part or water supporting wellness and the economy and things like that. AJ, why is there a coalition like this to talk about resiliency and inclusiveness in Boston's waterfront?
Yeah. So I mean, thank you for that question. It's really important that this coalition was started about a year ago, as Maureen said earlier. And the Coalition for Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront really is a coalition of over, at this point now, 50 organizations, partners, groups in the Boston, greater Boston, and really in the regional area, who are both working on issues that are facing the waterfront. But then we also have a number of partners that are not necessarily traditional waterfront organizations or organizations that are adjacent to the waterfront, but are representative of the larger Boston community and the community that we want to reach and really want to start to talk about these issues. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, there are a number of issues facing our waterfront in terms of the resiliency and the actual climate piece of it. But then there's also the inclusion part. And does every resident in the city of Boston actually feel welcome to the waterfront? And I think one thing that's important to mention as this coalition was started, we wanted to tackle both of those, both of those two tracks of issues. Like there are the climate issues, the actual issues that are facing the waterfront in terms of what we can do to make it resilient. But then there is also the programmatic things that are happening on the waterfront in terms of making it making it inclusive for every resident in the city of Boston. And so we really wanted to bring together, organizations, partners, and communities that have historically been left out of the waterfront and not felt welcome to the waterfront. And we hope that, this coalition will be a gateway to really bring together all of the different, organizations, residents in the city of Boston to really push them to the waterfront and make it as inclusive, as welcoming as possible. And I think one thing that I do want to make sure is very important, and we like to emphasize this with the coalition, is that when we're talking about the waterfront, we're not just talking about the downtown waterfront.
I was just getting ready to. You're ahead of me. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it.
Go ahead. It's not
just
the
seaport. When we talk about the waterfront, I mean, we talk about the Boston Harbor. We talk about Central Wharf. We talk about East Boston. We talk about Harbor Islands. We talk about Seaport in South Boston, but then we also have Dorchester, which happens to be on the Boston Harbor Harbor Walk. I go out. I mean, probably a spoiler, but one of my favorite parts of the waterfront is actually the UMass Boston Harbor Walk, which is right outside of my apartment. And over the last year, that has been my therapy.
Yes,
It's
sir.
just going out to going out to that waterfront and being able to walk along. And then we also have like the three rivers in the city as well: the Charles River, the Mystic River, and then the Ponset. And so all of these are, when we're talking about the waterfront in this coalition, talking about the issues facing the waterfront, we're really thinking about all of these different pieces of the waterfront as well.
Thank you, AJ. And I'm kind of stuck because I was going to go to Dr. Carby last, but there's a part of me that, and we will, but I can't wait to get to the importance of wellness. When we talk about, there is the inclusiveness, which has a wellness component to it. There is the equity piece as well. And so, Maureen, as the veteran in the room with this coalition that's on screen with us today, tell us about, you all have done a lot of work. You've done some polling with a reputable, Massachusetts polling company. And so you have some numbers and stats, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But what's some of the things that you guys have accomplished over the past year in looking at, what the voters are thinking, what residents are thinking that may not vote? What have you all accomplished in the past year?
So as I think Anthony mentioned, or you mentioned, we did do a poll where we polled Boston voters around questions around the waterfront in terms of climate resiliency and inclusivity where they feel welcome in the spaces. We also hosted a mayoral forum last year. I believe it was in August or September, but we had all but one of the mayoral candidates present, and they were answering questions about their plans for the waterfront, their plans for attacking climate change, and their plans for making sure that the waterfront's an inclusive space for city residents. And that was, we weren't being political about it in terms of backing any specific candidate, but we just wanted residents to know that they have a voice and that they should be voting for someone that has a voice and matches kind of where their head's at in terms of waterfront resiliency and inclusivity. And we also have gone out into the community and worked with some of our partners in terms of, making a space for ourselves to let community members know that this coalition exists, what we stand for, why it's important. Exactly. Yep. So going out into different areas of the community to do that. So we were at the Roxbury Day Unity Parade. We were
Yep.
several.
That's where we met face to face. Was it where we met face? No, that was the second time we each other.
Got me going down memory lane. We're at park for an event there. We've kind of been all over the place, just trying to make ourselves known. We also did a waterfront day with the Y, which was the most exciting experience for me within this coalition. We had 100 youth and chaperones, and we brought them over to Spectacle Island. Boston Harbor now was kind enough to donate some ferry tickets for the kids to go to Spectacle Island, and for a lot of them, it was their first time seeing any of the harbor islands, being on a harbor island. It was also their first field trip since lockdown, so that was exciting. And then after that, they went over to the aquarium and got to experience that. So, just really trying to make ourselves known in the community and really spread the word about what we're doing here.
Absolutely. I put a question down there, folks, and in the comments, let me know, have you been to the waterfront lately? Tell us about it, just so we can get a good perspective for those viewers that are in the room today. Dr. Carby, and I don't know, maybe I just like saying it, or just you exude so much energy. How significant, first of all, is it to wellness, water and wellness? Even though I said what I said, about not wanting to go to Atlanta, we have an advantage. We're blessed to be in a coastal city. And so how important is wellness or water or getting to spaces like that? How important is it to wellness and self-care? And I keep saying, AJ, please forgive me, Anthony, reference to, going for walks there. How important is the waterfront to our wellness here in Boston?
Yeah, so I think you touched on a lot of good questions right there. So a big thing that I look back on is some data from the CDC surrounding physical activity guidelines. So they've mentioned that 1 in 2 adults live with chronic disease in the country right now, and which is obviously a lot of people. And So we know that physical activity can help with those chronic diseases that people are dealing with. They can help with lowering the risk of high blood pressure, lowering the risk of stroke, but then also things we don't think about as much, like improving your mental health or improving cognitive function as well. So in order to hit those physical activity guidelines the CDC mentions, we need safe public spaces for people to get out and move. And that could be as simple as getting out for a walk. So when I look at the city where we live now, there are a lot of great public spaces that we have available to us where people can get out. They can go out and walk, they can go out and run, or they can simply sit outside and read a book and clear their head a little bit. And our goal here is to really promote what we already have available to us, because there's so many great spaces around the waterfront in Boston.
There's the physicality piece as well. And then I'll come back in a couple of seconds and ask just about, because, you know, I've always heard growing up that, you know, water is soothing. There are so many references to water when we talk about self-care. And so I'll come back to you on that piece that I know you can speak to. Anthony, you referenced earlier to a lot of the organizations. Who are some of the organizations and partners? I'll say today that you can, I'll let Alex know that you can add one more, because Java with Jimmy supports is definitely automatically a part, but add definitely Java with Jimmy to that list. But who are some of the partners, and why is it so important? And all of you can speak to this. Why is it so important to be so inclusive of these various type of partners?
Wow. Well, I think first I'll take the last question first. I mean, it goes back to the coalition, and the name of the coalition is really thinking about how do we make the waterfront inclusive of everyone, and making it welcoming to everyone. As I said earlier, we brought together organizations that traditionally don't necessarily work and play on the waterfront, but they represent communities that have been left out of the conversation about the future of the waterfront. And so we think about like organizations, and I definitely want to to defer to Maureen on this, but we have organizations like Becoming a Man. The DIMOC Center is one of our newer partners that helps to put on the Road to Wellness 5K. You know, we have Main Streets organizations, Phil's Corner Main Streets, Chinatown Main Streets, East Boston Main Streets, Eastie Farms. You know, a number of different partners. We have the New England Aquarium, some of our original partners, Boston Harbor Now, Boston Children's Museum, that are, you know, and just in those few examples, you can hear both the organizations and partners that are living on the waterfront, but then the additional groups that are more representative of the community, and more so the heart of Boston, as I would like to say. And really, we work closely with them, and as Maureen touched on earlier, to really think about like, how do we open up the waterfront to every resident in the city, and how do we invite every resident to the city to come to the waterfront to take place in programming, but also, as we talked about earlier, really convening communities around waterfront issues. I mean, we also want to make sure that we're not just, you know, this touristy, like, program heavy coalition. Like, we want to get into the issues. That's why we polled voters in the past. That's why we hosted the mayoral forum, because we understand that the issues facing the waterfront are what we really need to be talking about, and bringing as many voices to the table is important as well.
And I mentioned the polling. I mentioned the polling a couple of times, and just, I have some of the stats in front of me. Did a little bit of research, but 75% of the voters support additional city funding for creating a set of community benefit standards. 70% of the voters call it very important that the waterfront improves the public health of the city by providing, to Dr. Carby's point, providing open spaces for exercise and enjoyment. And so I just wanted to reference there, because we pointed to the polling and the voters and residents. And so, Maureen, can you go a little bit deeper about, you know, the importance of the partnership? We're going to talk about Wellness Week that's coming up, and one of the initiatives and activities that the coalition is doing. But Maureen, the add to what AJ talked about, the partnerships, as someone that's, again, I'll point back, you've been there kind of since the inception. How are you engaging the partners, and what have been the benefits from working with the partners?
So I think Anthony did a really good job of mentioning who the partners we have, but we want to be, you know, very intentional about bringing groups into the coalition that we're representative of the city of Boston beyond its waterfronts, but also know what they're talking about when it comes to, climate resiliency, right? So we have the obvious heavy hitters like the aquarium, Museum of Science, the Boston Harbor Now, Greater Boston Convention Center and Visitor Center. And then you have the organizations that are waterfront adjacent, like directly on the waterfront. They're doing the work day in, day out. They could talk about climate resiliency until the cows come home. It's their bread and butter. And we've learned so much from them. So, Save the Harbor, Save the Bay, the Charles River Conservancy, Eastie Farms, the Mystic and Neponset River Watershed Associations. We've done waterfront tours with some of these organizations where they've taken us around their specific areas of the waterfront and kind of given us an insight into what's not working, what can be done to fix it. They have all of the intel on like the things that are working in other like countries and other states, and just what we could be doing to make it better. And you hear some of this stuff and you wouldn't even know that it exists. Like in East Boston, I think I introduced you Ian to it, that there's a living shoreline in Eastie. And it's something that's really good for battling climate change. And I want to say Eastie's the only area with it, but I'm not positive on that. But it's just one of those things that I walked by it almost every day, and I had no idea it existed and that it was an important piece of the city. And then, as Anthony said, organizations that aren't necessarily waterfront adjacent but belong on the waterfront are huge to the Boston community and should be a part of the conversation, because when it comes down to climate justice,
In the room. Look who's in the room.
Hey, Conan.
Hey, brother Conan.
Climate justice is a racial justice issue. When it comes down to communities that are affected the most, it's the marginalized communities that are the most vulnerable when it comes to the impacts of climate change. They're at the front lines. So making sure that we have organizations that are representative of these communities and beyond. So as Anthony mentioned, we have the Dimick Center recently, the Black Joy Project. We have the NAACP, the Y, the Main Streets, Becoming a Man. So we just really wanted to be very intentional about who we brought on and what they bring to the table, and kind of coming together to really make sure that the voice that we have is a strong and united front in the battle against climate change and in inclusivity on our waterfronts.
So there is a wide a spectrum of partners that are being included in this coalition. And that definitely is a point that I think is well received and well made. Let's talk about Wellness Week. Wellness Week is coming up. And you talked about, Dr. Ian, earlier, that people having the availability of spaces, and there's the shoreline that Maureen talked about. So Wellness Week, tell us, and this is now, I've been pointing questions, but now let's just have a conversation about like Wellness Week, what's coming down the shore, or what's I don't know. I was trying to come up with what waves are being, never mind. I'll shut up. Let's talk about, I tried. Let's talk about Wellness Week. Dr. Karbi, what's going on with Wellness Week?
Yeah, so I may just defer to Anthony to introduce us to this topic, but yeah, we'll dive in more in the wellness side of things too.
All right, Anthony, wellness.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
talk.
so
There's one major thing that's happening a lot that week, but go ahead, sir.
Well, I'll let you plug the live from the waterfront episode. But no, this June, this summer in 2022, the coalition is looking to host a week-ish, a few days longer than a week, of waterfront, what we're calling our Waterfront Wellness Week. And this is just an opportunity, again, for us to bring that wide, diverse range of partners and organizations, groups that we are working with together, to really host a week of programming on the waterfront. And when we talk about the programming, we want to obviously have programming that is fun, that is welcoming to all, all residents in the city, but that we're also discussing issues. We want to make sure that we're still continuing to uplift the issues and make that connection between, as you mentioned in the poll, the public health and the city the city of Boston. The theme, I mean, for the coalition for this year is really public health, building off of that poll, because, you know, just to hear that 70% of residents in Boston really find it important that the waterfront improves the public health of the city is a challenge for, you know, our coalition, but also all the groups and organizations that work on the waterfront. It's really, how do we take the work that we're doing and make it accessible in a way that also all residents in the city can, you know, improve their public health by taking place in the programming. And so that's really the way that we're thinking about it. You know, Ian's going to touch on the wellness side, but I think one thing that is just very important to mention is that all the programming that we're going to be doing is going to be put on by and hosted by our partners. So again, an opportunity for us to uplift the work of our partners and really amplify their work. And that all of the programming that we are hosting during the week are going to be free and open to the public.
Somebody
and we
say
want to
free
make sure
stuff.
that, you know, free stuff. We'll have giveaways, we'll have family days. And so, you know, we want to just make sure that all the activities are both appealing, but also accessible for residents as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Dr. Carby, the wellness of that week or week plus, what can we expect, or what are you envisioning with the partners around just promoting wellness? And we can talk more about this in a couple of seconds, but there's access. I do see one of the poll numbers, and I want to talk about that a little bit, because there's some intentionality. Y'all know this is our authentic space. There is some intentionality about ensuring that BIPOC and other residents of Boston or around the waterfront, as I think Maureen referred to, that there's, you know, sort of a regional component to this as well. We'll get to that about the access and the intentionality around that. But the wellness part, Dr. Carby, what is going on during that week plus? Again, you guys working together, I know this is going to be very awesome and dope and engaging and all of that good stuff. But let's talk wellness.
Yeah. So even first, before we dive into wellness, I would encourage people in the comments, drop some things that you would be excited to do in the waterfront, because that's helpful for us to see, as well as just hearing some excitement about what kinds of stuff people are interested in diving into as we start doing this stuff. So what's that?
Got you covered. We're about to put the question right up here. Okay.
Awesome. So for us, wellness is a pretty overarching term. It can mean anything from physical, mental, dietary, spiritual. There's so many different ways we can dive into it. So as we plan the programming for this, we're trying to cover a lot of different bases and provide opportunities for people that are interested in all different types of wellness to come and join in along the waterfront. James, you mentioned before that the water kind of has a soothing effect for you. And I'm the same way. I grew up right around Portland, Maine, and I've always loved going and being around the water. It kind of feels like home no matter where I am in the world, you know. Just being near the water brings me comfort. So I feel you there. And I think that highlighting a lot of waterfront programming that includes any sort of wellness for people can be really great for everyone to enjoy.
Awesome. And we have the and this is a very this group of folks have no problem sharing their thoughts with you. So I'm sure we'll get some free 99 fits all. Okay, so wait a minute.
That's good. That's good.
$3.99. If it's free, it's for me, right?
Oh, free 99. Listen, see, I'm sorry, I haven't had all my Java this morning, but I mean, 99 is it. And so let's talk about, you know, get into the importance, because there's a lot of work going into Wellness Week. So how important is it? And again, intentionality here, being very transparent about one of the missions of the coalition's work is around equity. And so let's talk about how important it is that folks actually come out. And maybe a few months ago, there was an article that came out from the Boston Globe that actually took GPS tracking and really talked about where Black and brown folks move or do not move in Boston. And you all were intentionally, and sort of what we, and Anthony, you know, you all, you know, understand these oversampling, you know, of polls, but it found that some white residents found they classified getting to the waterfront with easy access. But then when you talked about 45% versus 36%. It was 45% that did easy access of white folks who were polled, but then in Asian it was 36%, Black 34, and Latino 30. So there is some intentionality in ensuring that folks come out. And so let's talk about how important it is that we take advantage of not only the Wellness Week but the waterfront in general. And that can go to anybody.
I think, as you mentioned, like, historically, Boston is a racially segregated city, right? And if you ask someone in the BIPOC community about the waterfront, they'll say it's the seaport, and like they won't even think beyond that. And that's that's not the case, right? Like we just mentioned, there's the Neponset in Dorchester and Mattapan. There's the Mystic River, and then the harbor is all over the place. And then B, they'll probably say that it's not a place for them. They don't feel welcome there. It's too far. And and that's something we're trying to combat, right? And so in thinking through these events that we're doing, we're talking to every single one of our partners in every single community, and we're not only working to build up our own events, but also leveraging the events that they have going on, to make sure that there's things happening everywhere, not just necessarily on the water, but and then also we're thinking through how we get communities that are not waterfront adjacent to the waterfront for these events. So, like I said, we had that waterfront day with the Y last year, and we're looking to do kind of similar programming and bringing people from outside communities to the water. So we're just being very intentional about it and working with all of our partners in
Ian, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to jump off of what Maureen said there too. And so we're setting up these events for people to come and enjoy the waterfront. And this is almost like a Kickstarter for the summer for people. So you come out and you're able to try something new that maybe you haven't done before. And our goal is to provide you with the possibilities to find some sort of activity of wellness that you can enjoy. And we will have instructors, we'll have people to help teach you. You get out there, you can enjoy it. And then you also figure out a way to get to these areas along the waterfront that are doable for the activities you're looking for. So hopefully this just gives you a kickstart into the summer to be able to have a more well-centered summer.
Yeah, and I piggyback off of that as well. Like to Ian's point, there are a number of our partners that really Waterfront Wellness Week is the kickstart for their programming for the summer. And so, we have a number of partners who will be doing things throughout the summer. We mentioned earlier the Road to Wellness 5K, the Roxbury Unity Day, which also happens over the summer as well. And so we'll also be, hosting this week, but then also using this as an opportunity to also expose the residents of Boston to our partners and the programming that they have throughout the summer that's hosted both in the waterfront and in the community as well.
And see, that's one of the things that really stands out to me when Maureen had mentioned that it won't just be events on the waterfront. It will be a waterfront focus, but there'll be events throughout the city that are highlighting, yes, coming to the waterfront, but wellness in general. The other thing that I heard, and we can get ready to wrap up with this, and there are a couple of questions and comments in the comment section that I'll bring before you guys, but I heard sustainability. I think if not all three, two of you at least say it's a Kickstarter. It's not just sort of one and done and just have an event. Let's talk about the relevance of sustaining this sort of access and being resilient with the coalition. So the coalition is committed to this for the long term.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Maureen? I thought I saw I thought I saw like that look like you were getting ready to say something. I just wanted to make sure I give space. But that's one of the things that stands out. And I have some information, and it is just amazing to see like what the goals are and what the points of the mission are, like standing for resilient waterfront, an inclusive waterfront, everything that we sort of covered, an accessible waterfront. What is, I guess, Dr. Carby, I'll come back to you. Overall, what are the benefits for folks that take advantage of the waterfront wellness and the things that the coalition are promoting just in general?
Yeah, so I think I'll tie this into an area that we haven't touched on a ton, but it's just in terms of the environmental side of things. Yeah, so the environment plays a huge role in health and wellness for people. So something I look at as an example is air pollution. So we know people that are exposed to worse air quality are likely to have more respiratory issues. So being able to provide clear air spaces for people is huge as they want to go outside and start to take advantage of exercise more. Areas along the waterfront tend to be a little bit more clear air because we have a lot of green spaces in those areas. So I think that can be a huge factor for why the waterfront could be important for people as they start to dive into wellness moving forward.
Maureen, let me ask you a direct question. In the space of equity, what is the advantage of coming into a space and you feel welcome? You feel that the brother is in the room, and I'm going to try to do it without doing his voice. We belong everywhere. How significant is that in an equity? And it's equity is tied to wellness. If you're feeling welcome, how significant is that equity piece when you're feeling welcome in a space?
Honestly, I think it has everything to do with mental wellness, right? You know, I remember and to say, like, I am a very privileged, person. I've been to the waterfront many times. I live in East Boston, so I live on the, like, not on the waterfront, but I live near the water. I have access and I'm able to go. And but I do remember I went down to DC a few years back with my husband, and we went and had brunch on the river down there. And I looked around and I looked at it and I was like, Jason, there is a lot of Black people here. This is amazing. If we went out to brunch on, like, in the seaport, usually I'm the only one, or maybe there's another one. And it's like, you're kind of like, oh, there's one. And there's something to be said about feeling comfortable around people that look like you. And there's something to be said about having your guard up when you're around people that don't look like you, because you don't know how they feel about you. So when you're coming into these spaces and you're seeing people that look like you, you're gonna have your guard down. You're gonna feel a little bit better about, like, being in this space and taking up the space. You're gonna feel more welcome. You're not gonna have to worry about, like, is this person kind of look at me sideways, or I guess in my mind, like, feeling welcome is a big part of mental wellness for me. So I'm gonna assume that that kind of is a widespread feeling. And that's coming from someone who already takes up the space there when I can. So it's just very important that people feel that, like, they belong there, and not just in like we're not just putting on airs. It's, you actually belong here.
And that's the thing. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I just want to say, Maureen, you just made me want to piggyback on top of what you're saying, because you're hitting on everything. And I just think that, like, at the end of the day, like, Black and brown communities, unfortunately, we bear the brunt of all of this. Like, we bear the brunt of, not having a climate change, and, like, not actually discussing about, issues facing the waterfront. And then at the end of the day, this is something that I heard earlier this week in one of our conversations for the coalition, is that, Black and brown communities, fishers in Dorchester. We have fishers that fish in Dorchester, that fish in Mattapan, but unfortunately, the water is so dirty that the things that they catch, they're getting sick as a result of it. And so, again, that is just one example of how our communities continue to bear the brunt of, the lack of attention and the lack of care put into the waterfront, just as one climate change issue. But it just illuminates the fact that we should be involved in these conversations, because at the end of the day, our communities are being affected by it.
I guess that's the one of the last points I want to make. But let me go to some of the comments there. You have Maureen, Jeannie Oliver from Boston agreeing with you that it was the same experience for her in Baltimore. I don't know what we said, but Brother Conan said yes. And then I just want to acknowledge, Maureen, you were talking about the partnership with the Roxbury Unity Parade. Our wonderful Toy Burton is in the room, the creator and founder of the Roxbury Unity Parade. I also have an artist in here doing a self plug that is talking about it's Black Music Month. There will definitely be some Black music down there, all types of music. And so when we get ready to go, I'm going to ask you guys, like preachers, to get ready to do closing statements. I just saw a couple other things. I saw something about maybe possibly having go-karts. I seen a program say that they organized an event for boating. Here it goes. I organized boating for my clients and they loved it. And so that's all. me see, how should I frame this? All right, I'll leave it alone. Folks just need to come out and experience different things. And I guess that's one of the things as we get ready to wrap up. And Dr. Carby, I'll start with you. If whatever you wanted to convey in your closing remarks. It is important that when these opportunities, and I won't even say opportunities, when equitunities are presented to us, that we take advantage of them and not what it in vogue, and I'm going to date myself, back in the day, free your mind and the rest will follow down to the waterfront. But you know, there is a piece of that we all have acknowledged there's been inequities, but when it's being addressed, there is a responsibility, or at least I would say challenge yourself to go out and do something different and do something new. It'll help your wellness. You get to go to a different place. And I will be honest, on one end, I went to the seaport last year during my little break of not being able to go to Miami. And when I tell you from a mental health space, Maureen, I was like, because to me, it did seem like a different place. I'm like, wow, this is Miami-ish, you know? And so anyway, I'll leave that. Dr. Carby, is there anything that you did not have a chance to say that you would like to convey to the audience around Wellness Week, Wellness Period? Because you are the, wellness man.
Yeah, I think I love what Anthony and Maureen said about leveling the playing field and trying to allow more people of color into these areas that have been traditionally more white. I think that will be great, and I hope that Wellness Week is able to provide people with a space that feels more comfortable for them to go out and adventure into some new areas. And in general, just promoting wellness, I think this would be great, and promoting what we have available in Boston in terms of the waterfront and making sure that we're able to keep it going environmentally as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Maureen, anything that you didn't have the chance to convey, challenge, floor is yours in your closing remarks statement.
I think I just want to reiterate that climate justice is a racial justice issue. And, we really have to, BIPOC communities really have to feel welcome and, speak up. Their voices matter in this, and they're the ones most affected by it. So I really hope that they're listening, and they're going to feel, and we'll work to help them feel like they belong in this space and they belong in this conversation.
Anthony, sir, I'm going to maybe throw a little more direct to you, because we've talked about it a little bit, but didn't go too deep into it. And I'm just going to be very honest. Climate justice and climate change and whatnot needs to be significant and on the radar of Black folks. Do you agree?
100%. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, our communities, as I said earlier, we deal with the residual effects, and a lot of that means that we're bearing the brunt of a lot of the inaction on the federal level, the state level, and on the city level. And so, we need to be at the table. We need to be driving these conversations, and we need to feel, as Maureen said, that we both feel welcome, and our voices are valued at the table in these conversations as well. And one other thing that I just wanted to mention, just in my closing as well, is we mentioned a lot about Baltimore, DC, which is home for me. Where the area that I'm originally from.
See how he smiled when you said that?
Always plug, always gotta be real, be honest about where I'm from. But Boston has definitely adopted me and been here over the last 5 years or so.
Yes, we have.
But one thing that you hear, as a non-Bostonian, was that the city is very segregated, and the city is, Maureen mentioned this earlier, Conan said this in the comments. But one thing that I, have seen over the past few years actually being here is that the leadership in the city, as I mentioned earlier, on the federal, state, and city level, has started to reflect the city, and it started to reflect the diverse cultures present in the city. And so now it's time for us to start to also, make sure that we are making our public spaces also as diverse, welcoming, and inclusive as our leadership in the city is. And I feel, with the leadership that we have on every level right now in government, that there is a strong promise. I mean, having a climate mayor, it goes a long way in terms of us being able to actually talk about some of these issues and tackle some of these issues. And so I know another thing that the coalition is really looking forward to is ways to engage some of our elected officials as well in these conversations and programming.
And it's so interesting. Thank you for setting me up, because it's not just programming. I did hear you in the beginning talk about policy, which lends to what I observed or was able to extract from just looking at the website. We're going to share that in a minute. The sustainability, again, you said it's a kickstart, so it's not just programming, but I also wanted to raise the fact that it's programming and policy, that the coalition is moving to affect policy as well, because that's another kickstart to sustainability. Folks, if you want, and Anthony, forgive me, this is the Twitter or IG?
Instagram. Yep.
This is the Instagram. So folks, go today, as soon as you get off Java with Jimmy, and follow this page to stay up to date with what's going on. I did not do a shameless plug, and I'll do that in a couple of seconds. And then this is the website to where you can go and get information. You can go there. I suggest that you subscribe so you can get all of the information when emails go out on IG. You can, when flyers go out. But there will be a lot of information. And it's, as I said before, it's not just June. Now, speaking of June, during Wellness Week, and I've mentioned this a few times, and folks are like, oh, yeah, we'll see or whatever. One of the Wellness Week activities is going to be Java on the waterfront. And we're going to figure out the date and let folks know when that's going to happen. But this great group of folks who is supporting it, and I want to thank all of you. I would be remiss if I did not thank Alex for his leadership and stuff around this as well. But it was definitely an honor and a privilege having you all in the Java Cafe today, because this is an important issue. It is a huge, important issue, generally around equity, generally around space, generally around exercise, the mental health impact that all of you have touched on. So I appreciate all of you coming on today. The platform is available. And so if there are updates, information, flyers, or whatever, as the week is forming, please get me the information and I'll make sure that we share it with folks. But the other piece to the Java fam and others is when the information goes out, challenge yourself to come out and be a part. Put it in your schedule and make time. I'm going to go check out Wellness Week and do something different. For some, it may not be different, but for some, it may be. And so I'm encouraging you all to meet me there. June is a hugely busy month. But I encourage you all to come out and take advantage of everything that the coalition is doing, and not just the kickstart of Wellness Week, but go to the website, subscribe, go to Instagram and follow, and you'll stay up to date with information. I'm just going to troll the comments one more time to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Small. This is one of the, I call her, she's part of the mother's board. She wants to have a picnic table there. I already suggested an idea for the Java cafe thing, and I've mentioned it to Anthony. I won't say it here yet, but I'll just say it's simple. You'll need a table if it goes through. So I appreciate all of you. I'm going to go pay a couple of bills before I go. And again, I look forward to talking with you all real soon. And thank you for blessing my screen today, because this screenshot, when I'm feeling whatever way, I can go back and look and be like, wow, I'm surrounded by some great, wonderful folks. So I appreciate you all so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, James.
Have a good day, y'all. Appreciate you.
Bye.
It was definitely awesome having all of them in the room. Don't forget, there's the website for you to go and look up information. And I really suggest you subscribe. Yesterday, I'm going to put some music on. Yesterday, we had the Mass Cultural Council. Go to the website to subscribe. One of the things that we often talk about is we are not aware. These folks spent this time this morning to come and make us aware. The executive director of the Mass Cultural Council spent his time yesterday to make us aware. And so when the awareness is out there, it behooves us to take advantage of it. And so go to the website and subscribe. Also go follow them on Instagram as well. Today's Thursday, which is my Friday. And so I will see you guys on Monday, and you might see me this afternoon The mayor is making an announcement at 2:15 about the new chief of human services, not health and human services. And I'll just say that when I say I am extremely proud of the announcement being made today, it's major. When you see folks that you used to work with, mentor, counsel, when they were, younger, it is just definitely awesome to see them ascend into a role for which they are definitely qualified and can speak to the issues, but also is very solution and answer focused. And so I might be back on this afternoon. I got a few things to juggle, but otherwise you will see me on Monday morning with Dr. Brandy at 9 a.m. And I think that is it. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. That is 2:50. Sharon, if you're talking about what time later today, about 2:15. Yes. Yes, about 2:15. Lisa, thank you for being in the room. This looks like a new Java fam member here. Welcome her. Jeannie, it is my pleasure. It is my pleasure. And Belinda, we guess your birthday is in June. So we'll remember. Did I miss somebody's birthday yesterday? Let me get off of here, y'all. Have a wonderful weekend. I may be back on at 2:15. I'm not sure. I'll put a post up if I am. And have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And we shall talk to you, if not this afternoon, on Monday. Oh, how could I forget? Next Saturday. Hold on. Next Saturday, April 23rd at Kay's Lounge. We are gathering for We Need to Know 4 years later. I put a post up. I sent over a list to the city of Boston and said, 2018, these are the folks that we had in the room. About 85% showed up. City officials got to hear from the community all at one time, and it had an impact. So I'm asking you, for those of you that are available, impacted by violence, not impacted by violence, praying for those impacted by violence, ensure that you share the flyer. Ensure that you invite somebody to come. So We Need to Know at Kay's Lounge next Saturday at 11 a.m. City officials will be there. I've made it plain to the elected officials that they are welcome to come. There will only be one elected official that will speak because this is a municipal focused event. But, if you let one besides the mayor speak, they all going to want to speak. And so, yeah. Now, the elected officials will have the opportunity to talk to residents one-on-one like we did in 2018 when we broke up and folks they mingled and they got to have real conversations. So April 23rd, Kay's Lounge, 11 a.m. Belinda, thank you so much. And tell Vanessa, I'm sorry. I'm going to do my best to try to get on that form right now. All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody. And we will see you, if not later this afternoon, Monday at 9.